know, my name is Pam Mandel, and my favorite thing is electric bicycles.
Welcome to the Finding Favorites podcast, where we explore your favorite things without using an algorithm. Here's your host, Leah Jones.
Hello and welcome to Finding Favorites. I'm your host, Leah Jones, and this is the podcast where we learn about people's favorite things and get recommendations without using an algorithm. I'm very excited tonight, in part to play 6 Degrees of Blog Separation with my guest, Pam Mandel. Pam is the author of her memoir, The Same River Twice. She's a photographer. She plays the ukulele. Her blog is called Nerd's Eye View. And this spring, she wrote and helped release the short movie, Elvis of the Yukon, with my good friend, Amy Guth and Rocco. You've met Amy on the podcast before, and you will meet more people from the team. But Elvis of the Yukon is on the festival circuit now, and I am so pleased to have Pam Mandel on the podcast with me tonight. Pam, how are you?
I'm great. Thank you for having me.
Thanks for joining me. So you are coming in live from Seattle?
Yes.
Nice. And how is Seattle treating you this spring?
It has been the most beautiful spring. The most beautiful spring. I probably say that every spring, but right now, this time of year is really nice to be here. Our days get long now, and they get really long. I don't know where Chicago is in relation to Seattle on the latitudes, but we start to get longer and longer and longer days, and I love that.
Nice.
Yeah.
Yeah, we were talking before we hit record about trying to see the auroras this weekend, and it was 8 p.m. and it still wasn't dark yet here.
Yeah.
And it was just like, oh, okay, summer is coming. We have survived.
Yes. Yeah, we get this promise of summer at this time of year.
Yeah. But then Seattle, I mean, it's like sunsets at 10 in the summer. Is it that long, or?
It might be later. I would have to look it up to
wow.
Kind of precise thing. But what we get is this sort of royal blue sky late into the evening. It is really the most spectacular color. I love it.
Yeah. I've been to Seattle a couple times. My brother and a cousin both made their way out there. We all grew up in the Midwest, and 2 people are in Seattle. One's in Bellingham. Another one is outside of Moscow, Idaho. So we have a strong Pacific Northwest contingent of our family.
Yeah.
So Pam, we were introduced by our mutual friend, Amy Guth, who knows everyone. And the two of you you made a movie together.
We did.
Called Elvis of the Yukon.
We did, yeah.
You just had your festival premiere a couple weeks ago in New York.
Thank you very much.
So I happen to know you and Amy also collaborated on a screenplay that you have not produced yet. So is this your first movie?
It is, yeah.
Tell me a little bit about the short and how it came to be and who you are in it.
Yeah.
I believe it's autobiographical.
It is a true story. When you ask me how it went, I'm like getting goosebumps because it was so great. Oh my God, how did it go? It was really one of the most magical things I've worked on ever in my whole entire life.
Oh, I love to hear that.
It was amazing. So I know Amy through the magic of the internet, of course, right? Because I guess that's how you build connections nowadays. And when my memoir came out, which was on Election Day 2020, yay, lucky me. I'm one of that class of authors. She invited me to a virtual authors group that she was running in Chicago. And of course I said yes, because I had no book tour. I was going nowhere. Nobody was going anywhere in November 2020. I was at home in my pajamas for like a year and a half. So she invited me to be a guest author in this reading series. And of course I said yes. And I was waiting sitting in the virtual green room, waiting for her to, for all the guests to show up. And she said, before we kick this thing off, I want to ask you, what do you want to have happen with your book? And I said, well, in a perfect world, I would get to make a movie out of it. Lots of people who have read my book, people who have talked to me about my book, they're like, oh my God, it's so cinematic. You should make a movie. And I'm like, yeah, I really want to do that. I know nothing about that. I don't know how to do that. So I said to Amy, I would like to make a movie based on the book. And she said, I'm so glad to hear you say that because I want to work with you on that. And I was like, haha, that's super funny. Because I did not know this aspect of her at all. I knew her as a radio personality. I had been a guest on her radio show. And I knew her as an online person because we're women of the internet of a certain era. And we became connected via Twitter before it went to hell in a handbasket.
Yep.
But I did not know that she was a film person. And so she says, I'm so glad I'm really happy to hear you say that because I would like to work with you on this. And I was like, I don't know how to do that. And she said, well, I know how to do that. So don't worry about that. We'll figure it out. So I was like, oh gosh, okay, we should talk. And maybe we could talk maybe we talk next week after we're done with this. We'll put something on the calendar. And she said, no, I can't do that because I'm going to a film festival in LA. And I was like, oh shit, she's actually like, she really is the real deal.
Yeah.
Then after she got back from LA, I asked her how it went. And she was like, oh yeah, we won. Our film won. She had been working on a documentary. And I was like, okay, all right. You just buckle up. I'm in for this ride. So we spent 9 months together working on the screenplay based on my memoir.
And your memoir is The Same River Twice.
Yes.
A memoir of dirtbag, backpackers, bomb shelters, and bad travel.
It's sitting right here. I have a copy of it right here because I always have a copy handy at my desk just in case.
As you should.
As one should. Anyway, so we spent she taught me how to write for screen, which was something I didn't know. And she was a great teacher. I cannot say enough good things about getting to work with her. Because I had never written screenplay before. So she taught me how to do it. We worked together. We finished it up. We went for dinner. For the last weekend of it, she came to town. We sat in my kitchen and we sort of we just worked over the course of the weekend. Then we went to dinner and I said, okay, so what's next? And she said, we go get awards. And we did. Yeah. We went for awards and then we got a handful of awards for the screenplay. And I was like, oh, okay. All right. So I was like, the whole thing was just the most crazy ride.
Yeah.
So she's got this completed screenplay, this completed award-winning screenplay that we worked on together. And we were talking one day and she said, okay, so I have this portfolio of projects that I'm shopping, but you need to write something else because you're basically new and unknown in this sector. And when people ask me about you, they're going to ask me what else you've done. So what else do you want to work on? What else would you like to write? And so we talked for a while and I told her this particular story, which the short is based on. And she said, okay, go write that. Go write that now. Go. And I was like, okay, I think I know how to do this because you taught me how. I'm going to sit down. And she's like, when can I have it? This is a great idea. I would like it now. Give me the screenplay now.
Yeah.
And this was, maybe it was the weekend before Thanksgiving. And I wasn't busy. And I went and I sat in my kitchen and I wrote it. It's short. It's a 10-page script.
Yeah.
So I finished up the script and I sent it to Amy. And she said, basically, this is great. No notes, gold star. And I was, I was thrilled because it meant that I had learned how to do this thing. And the whole way along, I was like, if nothing else, I have learned how to write screenplays. And this is exciting. And I'm a writer. I get to learn how to write in a new format. I get to learn new ways to think about storytelling. This is great.
Yeah.
So I'm winning no matter what, right?
Yeah.
Right? Because I got to learn to do a thing. So she gave it to Rocco and Mike, the guys in the production company that she's associated with, Potenza Productions. She wanted them to read it. And they were like, let's make it. Let's make it now.
Yeah.
And I was like, what? How is this even happening? It was like, why would they do that? Why would they want to do that? Because, I was just so sort of like amazed that this was even happening.
Yeah.
And she was like, no, they love the story. They want to do something fun. They want to make a piece that's just art and not work.
Yep.
Let's figure out how to do this. So she put together a budget and I just started talking to people about how I had written this short screenplay and was trying to make a film. And I was learning all these things and here's how it works. And I got this production partners that I'm working with and people were like, shut up and take my money.
I love it.
I was just amazed. Like, and I feel like, so on the one hand, I did the fundraising for it, right? And on the other hand, I feel like I didn't do anything except talk about what I was doing with people I knew, right? So I was clearly talking to the right people.
Yeah.
And at one point I put together a little newsletter because I was it was this thing that was rolling, right? And all I said to people was, if you want to learn how to participate in the project or you want to hear more about it, drop me a line. And inevitably they would say, where do I send the check? So
it's the best response.
It was really it was the most remarkable experience.
Yeah.
So we cast it online in, maybe it was April last year, and we shot it in May here in Washington over the course of 3 days. And now it's a thing. It's on the festival circuit. It was really like the most magical ride, and it's beautiful. I love it. And there's incredible talent in it. And everybody I've showed it to, they're like, oh, like you made a real movie.
Right.
You know, like you did these people knew what they were doing. You know? So it's been super exciting.
Yeah, we worked with Rocco and Mike to do our synagogue High Holy Days during COVID.
Oh, I saw that.
Yeah.
You sent it to me. It's beautiful.
It was so beautiful.
Yeah.
And it was one of those things also when like the rabbi and the cantor came in, they were like, oh, this is real.
Right.
Yeah. Like, you know, at that point we're 6 months into Zoom Shabbat services.
Right.
I'm the tech captain. Like I'm the technical person. And then they walk in and there's cameras on rails and shot lists and lighting. And they're like, oh, these guys are real.
Yeah.
And they're so professional and they have such a good vision. And they're like kind and fun. Like they're a good hang, all of them.
Yes. Yeah. And we had that from everybody, not just Rocco and Amy and Mike, but every single person who worked with us was awesome to be around.
Yeah.
Our was fantastic. They were just like genuinely lovely people. The crew was amazing. It was just this nonstop delight. It's crazy. I had a long talk with Carrie, I'm going to blow her last name. I should look it up so I could say it properly. She was our makeup artist. She's in our credits. And on the last, it was sort of towards the end of maybe it was the second day, maybe it was the third day. I can't remember. One day she took me aside and she's like, I got to warn you, you're going to have a really hard time when this is over. It's going to be a huge bummer for you. And I want you to know that you're going to get home and you're going to have this major come down from all of this because your day-to-day life can't compete with the magic of what's happening here.
Right.
And she was right. And I was grateful for the warning because, I came home and I slept for 100 million hours because I was exhausted.
Yeah.
And then I was like, oh, I could go back to my day job. Now because it was there's just good vibes nonstop for 3 days.
Yeah. So the log line is that Elvis of the Yukon is the story of two friends, Melissa and Will, who are on a road trip in Alaska when they cross paths with an Elvis impersonator in a vintage Cadillac and change course. So what is the true part of this story?
All of that is true.
All of it's true.
All of that's true. There are, I don't know how many people who are listening to this will actually see the film, but I will tell you that there are some very minor things that we had to change in order for it to fit the filmmaking requirements. Thing one is that the Cadillac in real life was blue. And the one in our movie is gold. Because that's what we got. We got a gold Cadillac.
Yep.
Thing two is that I did not leave my friend in Whitehorse as I do in the film. I traveled with him for another week or so, and I flew home from Valdez, Alaska, not from Whitehorse. And thing three is that we moved it into the modern era. It's day. So we had our male lead looking for a cell phone signal, but my friend went to go find a payphone. We were traveling without cell phones at the time. Those are the only things that we changed from the original story. And when we cast Charles Gay, as our Elvis impersonator, one of the things that I loved about auditioning him for the part was he said, I looked this guy up. He's real. And I was like, yeah. And you're the only guy who did that. So it's a true story.
Wait, he was surprised the impersonator was real, not that Elvis was real.
Yes.
Okay. Just checking.
Yes.
So there was really an Elvis impersonator who drove around Alaska in a Cadillac.
There is legitimately, I was in a laundromat in Skagway, Alaska, when an Elvis impersonator walked in. It is a true story.
Wow.
Yeah.
I grew up in Terre Haute, Indiana, and there was a town nearby where the mayor was an Elvis impersonator. So he was mayor by day, king by night. And I saw him perform at least once. I definitely had like one of his scarves like signed. It was what a funny and weird time that was in the 80s, like 80s and 90s, when Elvis impersonators were everywhere.
Everywhere.
Yeah.
In a laundromat in Skagway, Alaska.
Amazing.
Everywhere. Yeah. Yeah.
What's next for the short?
We have a festival application schedule as long as my arm.
Okay.
I am waiting to hear from, we're all waiting to hear from a dozen, 24 festivals. I mean, Amy's managing all of this stuff as our producer at large and general force of nature.
Yeah.
So she's pretty much covering it. You know, we're looking at Dublin, we're looking at DC, we have applied, of course, to a festival in Alaska.
Of course.
We have a bunch of film festival applications out. So
okay.
What I don't know and or understand is what happens after we sort of hit our festival threshold. But it also looks like we could do this for a year, maybe longer.
Yeah. That's what I've seen with other friends who do the festival circuit with a short. You do it for a year, you build some buzz, you fund and shoot the next short, you do another round, and then the goal being to fund and shoot the feature.
Right.
That this is what gets people comfortable enough with you as a creative team that they'll support the feature.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I have great hope that we can leapfrog and go straight to the feature.
Yeah.
Because our film is so beautiful.
It really is. So I've got the IMDb pulled up. What's the best place, is it following the team on Instagram? Like, what's the best way for people to find out if it's, because you were recently in a digital festival, so people for a weekend could watch it online.
Yeah. I think probably the best way is to follow any of us on social. We maybe need to set up an Elvis of the Yukon Threads account or something so that people can find us. I also, if people want to subscribe to my newsletter, I promise it is non-spammy. And it is just like, here's what's up with the film. And when something is up with the film, I hit send and it's got either recent awards that we've done or screening dates or anything that's sort of relevant to the state of this particular project. And I can give you a link to that you can share in the show notes.
Well, Pam, the movie is what brought us together, but we are also here to talk about one of your favorite things. What are we going to talk about this evening?
We're going to talk about electric bicycles.
Electric bicycles. I'm so excited. Chicago's bike share program is called Divvy. And in the last couple years, they've made a huge investment in e-bikes as part of the sharing infrastructure. So Chicago, more and more people are getting on them. I have not yet, but I think it's going to change after tonight. What's your origin story with e-bikes? What was the first time you were exposed to one?
So before I answer that, I should tell you that inside my middle-aged body lies the beating heart of a hardcore roadie. And I used to do really long road bike rides.
Okay.
Long road bike rides. Like, it would be not a big thing for me to get on my bike and do 50, 100 miles on a weekend. Right? And then, like, maybe do it again the next day for fun.
Did you ever do, like, Bike Aid or RAGBRAI, like any of the big?
I did the Seattle to Portland.
Nice.
It's 200 miles. Yeah.
Okay. In a day, 2 days?
I did not do the 2-day thing. I did I did not do the 1-day thing. There are people who do it 1 day.
That seems brutal.
I did it in 2, but it was really like, I could do a 75-mile ride on the weekend and then get up the next day and just like go do it again. It was not like it's what I did. I started as a commuter. I was a person who didn't live with cars. I never had the money to buy a car, and I was not a kid who my parents bought a car for. So I rode a bike, and then I moved to Seattle, and it's a very hilly city, and I was like, you know what, I'm still going to ride a bike. So I had a 10-mile commute that I used to do on my bike every single day. I went to work, and at the end of my ride, there was a big hill, and I was like, well, I guess I got to ride up this big hill now.
Amazing.
But I moved to my house in West Seattle, and I live on top of a big hill, and I kind of stopped riding because it got to be unfun for me to climb this giant hill at the end of my ride. And I was like, there's got to be a better way. I know there's a better way. Electric bikes exist.
Right.
And so I got it in my head that this was the solution. And I bought one on sale at a going out of business bike shop. And I was like, oh, this is a total game changer. This is everything. I have since owned a series of them.
Okay.
This is what happens when you're a bicycle person.
Well, yeah, the right number of bicycles is one more than you have today.
Yeah, actually, I am down to one. I thinned my herd. I had a garage full of road bikes, and I had 2 electric bikes in there, and I am now down to 1 bike, and it is an electric bike.
Wow.
But at one point, there were, I think, 6 bicycles in my garage.
Yep.
2 of them were electric, 4 were not. So, the first one that I got was not great, honestly. And because I live on top of a big hill, it needed to have more juice, and the range on it wasn't fantastic. And it was often running out of juice right before I got to the top of my hill. And I was like, this is like defeating the purpose. But by that time I was sold. I was like, there's a better way. And so I sold that one off on Craigslist, and I got another one. And I got this one from REI, the big gear co-op.
Yep.
And I remember when you buy most bike shops give you a free tune-up. You've had your bike for 3 months or 400 miles or whatever it is. There's some numbers, just like your car. They give you a free tune-up. And so I rode my bike in to the shop, which is about 8 miles from here. And I had to go get it to ride it home. And I'd been kind of sick. I had a cold, and I was like dragging. But I had met some friends for dinner, I think, and we were not far from the store where my bike was. And I was like, can you guys just drop me off and I'll just ride my bike home? Never mind. And they were like, are you sure you're kind of getting over the thing? And I'm like, nah, it's fine. I'll be fine. And I went and picked up my bike and I rode it home, and I was fine. And I was like, oh. So it turns out that like there's never an excuse not to ride your bike.
Yeah.
It's never that hard. It's not that big of a deal. And so that particular experience was sort of like pivotal. When I went to go pick up my bike from the shop, and I was like 5 days into a 10-day cold. And I was super sick, but I was kind of draggy. And I was like, I just put my draggy ass on the bike and I rode it home. And I got home and I was fine. And I was like, this is over. It's over. I just don't have a reason to not do this. Yeah. Now, Seattle can be a rainy, wet, windy city, and that's a bummer. So their weather is real.
Yeah.
It's a thing that you still have to deal with. But since that particular ride, I stopped driving my car in the summer if I don't need to carry anything, or if it's less than 10 miles away. Yeah. Because it's not too hard. It's never too hard.
So tell me about the e-bike you have today. Is it a step through? Is it like, what's the build of it? Is it a cargo bike?
Right. So because, as I have mentioned, inside me lies the beating heart of an old roadie. Yep. I want to ride a bike that feels like a bicycle.
Sure.
My bike is basically a European style step through commuter city bike.
Okay.
Right? So that's basically what it is. I have saddlebags on it for carrying my groceries. I have a little handlebar bag for my phone and my chapstick. And I have a string of Christmas lights wrapped around it that I turn on when I ride at night so that people can see it. We have plenty of ambient street lights here, but I like to be highly visible. It's got a bell and a built-in headlight and a rear flasher. It's very much like a European city bike.
Nice.
My bike is French. It's called a mustache. it's red, and my saddlebags are turquoise, and it's pretty.
Nice.
And my helmet is the same color as my saddlebags. It is also turquoise.
Love it.
And it's great. It has street tires on it. It doesn't have skinny like racing tires or skinny like hardcore road tires, but it has the same kind of configuration as my old commuter had.
Mm-hmm.
And it feels like it handles like a regular bicycle, except that I can get up the hill without needing to like either walk it or have my lungs explode or my knee go out or any of that stuff.
And how do you do you plug it in? Does it charge by when you pedaled? Are you charging it?
No, you have to plug it in.
You plug it in.
Yeah, I think it's basically the same kind of thing as your electric car, where when the battery's down, you got to plug it in and you charge it up. Mine gets about, like, I haven't totally topped it out. The longest ride I've done on it is 28 miles.
Okay.
So it depends on sort of what mode it is. It has a variety of assist modes, right? And so I turn it way down so I live on top of a big hill, like I said. And so if I'm flying down the hill, it's in the lowest assist mode.
Mm-hmm.
If I am coming back up the hill with a bag with, 2 saddlebags full of groceries, it's on the full.
Yeah.
And so it just depends.
And what does it feel like when the electric assist kicks in?
It feels like a little bit like you remember when you were a kid and you learned how to ride a bike, and some big person, you're 5 and you're like a little bit wobbly and you're 5 and somebody's got you and they give you a little push. It's a little bit like that.
Okay. It just cuts through the friction.
Yes. And a thing to know is that these things they come in endless variations, right?
Yeah.
I was looking for a very specific type of ride, a very specific type of bicycle, right? Like I really wanted that European commuter model to carry my groceries on. I wanted lights because it gets dark early. I wanted these very specific features. But you also see, like in Seattle, you see extra long bikes with a carrier for a kid on the back.
Yep.
There's a guy I've seen around my neighborhood who's riding an electric bike, and it has a sidecar.
Please tell me he has like a beagle in it.
I have not seen a critter in it yet, but this is what I am hoping for. I have, though, on multiple occasions seen various folks with little trailers with the dog in the trailer. I have seen, there's a lot of fat tire commuters around here that have big, heavy frames. You can get them with a throttle so that you don't have to pedal at all. Mine does not have that. They come in a million different variations.
Wow. Now, when somebody gets one with a throttle, like at what point does it become a motorcycle?
So there's a whole class designation system with them. And I'm going to get it wrong because I don't remember off the top of my head what it is, but there's a sort of the class of e-bike that I ride, and often they're topped out at a certain top speed.
They have a governor for the...
Yes.
Yep.
And then there's another variation that is like the next level of speed. And you know what? I don't think they're ever a motorcycle. They might hit scooter territory.
Okay. That makes sense, right?
Yeah. And like you can tell. You'll see them. You'll see people riding around on them, and they're like, that guy's going 30 miles an hour on that thing. And you're like, okay, that guy's riding this particular class of bike that is like scooter class.
Wow.
Yeah.
What do you tell people who are on the fence about getting one? It seems like it's expensive. It's like, how do you keep it charged? Are you worried about the battery? Like, I can imagine people having all sorts of buts about it. How do you combat a butter?
Yes. So there's a bunch of these things that I have in the course of my existence come across. The first one I keep coming across is like, but it's not a real bicycle, to which I just have like, whatever, man.
Yeah.
Calm down. You go sit down.
It doesn't balance for you.
Yeah.
It's 2 wheels. There's a chain. It's a bicycle.
Yeah. Just go sit down. We're not talking about that. But the folks who are sort of hesitant, like, it is indeed expensive. A good bike is expensive. Prices are starting to come down. But my answer to that is that owning a car is very expensive. And if you think about your electric bike as a replacement for a car, you're in a completely different way of thinking about it. You're not replacing a bicycle. You are replacing a car. You're not acquiring a bicycle. You are acquiring a method of transportation that is going to crack your city open for you. in ways you never thought possible. So I commuted to South Lake Union. I was working on a project that was in South Lake Union. It was 8 miles each direction. Every day I rode my bike. It took me 45 minutes, door to door, no matter what was happening. You know what happened when I took my car? It was different every time. Every single time.
Yep.
Because traffic, because accidents, because.
Yeah.
When I rode my bike, it was 45 minutes. It was a highly predictable system.
Right.
Because I had my own way, right?
Yeah.
Like I was not at the whimsy of 4,000 cars on the bridge in front of me.
Yeah.
So there's that. Let's see, what else? The range thing is a real issue, but most people are not taking an e-bike. They're not, like, I think that if you think about it as a tool for commuting or as a tool for, doing your running around, people are pretty aware. Also, the charger is maybe 3 times the size of the charger for my laptop. I could throw it in my bag and take it with me.
Okay.
Right? So, like, if I'm doing something long and I'm like, this is too long, I'm not going to make it, it's very likely I'll be able to find a place to plug it in.
Okay.
Right? The battery comes out. I can bring the battery in with me.
Yeah.
Plug it in, put it back in, ride home.
Yeah.
Most of the concerns are addressable. The cost thing is real. It's real. They're not cheap.
I don't know if you're familiar with Jamel Bowie. He's a columnist for the New York Times.
Yeah.
And he's also an e-bike advocate. Huge e-bike advocate. And I think if you're in a family with 2 cars, an e-bike easily replaces 1 car.
Absolutely.
And I can think through, I used to be a bike commuter and ride my bike everywhere and do lots of chores with it. And I had a crash that spooked me and I had cancer, and I haven't ridden my bike since I finished my cancer treatment because I have so many physical limitations that if I don't ride my bike, I can still ride it. But as soon as I ride my bike and I can't go as far as I used to go, then it's something else I've lost.
Yeah, this will give you that back in a minute.
Yeah.
And I cannot remember who was telling me that they put their wife on an electric bike because she lost some upper body strength because of breast cancer stuff.
Yep.
And she's riding an e-bike, and they're riding together now.
That's great.
The other thing that I want to tell you is I remember I was out on a ride once, and I came across a woman who was riding a particular brand of e-bike, Faraday, and they're beautifully designed. They don't have the range or the guts that I like, but they're beautifully made bikes. Yeah. And I asked her, I asked this woman, like, how do you like this bicycle? And she said, I never thought I would be able to do the kind of riding that this allows me to do.
Yeah.
Right? I did like a community ride 2 weeks ago, and the variety of bicycles on that ride, there were hundreds and hundreds of people on this ride. And the variety of bicycles on that ride was staggering. Yeah. And also the range of people who were able to participate because they were riding electric bicycles was fantastic. Fantastic. Like I saw dads pulling their kid in a trailer on this ride. I saw just like all kinds of people, right? And cycling has been for so many years the domain of
wealthy white men,
or not just that, but like skinny humans in Lycra with strong legs.
Yeah.
Right? And now I see a couple and their 2 kids all the time riding around my neighborhood on their e-bikes with their 2 kids. One parent has 1 kid, the other parent has the other. These are not skinny humans.
Right.
They are not skinny. You know what they're doing? They're riding around with their kids. And this is not an easy neighborhood to ride in, but their bicycles have made it possible for them to get on the road on bicycles. And in my mind, this is the best thing for everybody, right? And as much as those white dudes in Lycra like to complain about e-bikes, what this does is it puts more people in cycling infrastructure, and more people in cycling infrastructure means more cycling infrastructure.
Right, absolutely.
Cycling infrastructure benefits those dudes who are critical of the e-bikes because they get more lanes. We have a bike infrastructure in Seattle that when I first started to ride here, I would have never thought possible. And it's because so many more people are cycling now, and so many more people are cycling because they're able to get on a bike and ride because the bike is there to help them.
Yeah. I think it's been interesting in Chicago. Once they brought in the electric divvy bikes, I think it absolutely helped more people say like, whoa, this is great. And now I want my own bike that does it. Because I've got a bike lane right outside my apartment, and every morning there's a pack of guys from Triple X riding, like there's a pack of Lycra boys, men, right? They go by every morning and every weekend.
Yep.
But more and more often I'm seeing regular people on bikes that are going way too fast for their outfit. And I'm like, oh, it's an e-bike.
Yeah. And you know what they're not doing when they're doing that? They're not driving.
Right.
They're not in a car.
Yeah. It's not making the pollution. It's not putting people at risk.
Yeah. I will say that my experience with the city bike, the bike shares, has been patchy. They can be really janky. I rented one in San Antonio, Texas, and it was a rough ride, man. A lot of people are using those things. And then I picked one up in San Francisco a couple of weeks ago, and it just was not kicking in. And San Francisco's a tough city to ride in.
Yeah.
And I was like, you know what? This is going to be easier on foot, or I need a different bike, right?
Yeah.
So when you get a city bike, you can get one that's great. And I had a friend come and visit, and I was like, hey, let's get you on a bike and let's go see the neighborhood by bicycle.
Yeah.
And he was like, I'm doing this everywhere now. He got a good bike.
Nice.
It was well maintained. The battery was fully charged. It was a good ride. And he was like, why don't I do this everywhere? Why don't I do this everywhere? And now he does. When he travels, he picks up an e-bike instead of taking a taxi, instead of taking Uber, instead of taking the bus. And so that is fantastic. But they're patchy, right? Because they're, when you take the bus, sometimes your bus is kind of beat up and sometimes it's a new one. And this is the same thing. It's a public utility. All kinds of people are using them. But I'm telling you this because if you get on a bike that you get from your local bike share program and it's not behaving, it's because that particular bicycle is whacked. Put it back.
It's not that e-bikes are bad. It's that particular divvy was not well maintained.
Yeah, put it back in the dock or wherever you picked it up, report it as busted, and pick up another one.
Yeah.
Because I would encourage you not to give up just because you've had one bad ride or two bad rides. They do get beat up, and it's just like it's the nature of the beast. You know, when you get your own bike, the level of what you get, like the city bikes are throttled, so you can't. They often are throttled, so they don't go as fast as they would be able to. They're heavy. They're designed to be like dumped on the curb. They're designed to sit outside and take abuse. So it's a very different experience to ride a city bike versus your own sweet ride that you keep in an interior garage and take to the mechanic, and you know how everything works on it. So don't give up just because you've had like a bike or two that's not behaving. It's not that the idea is bad. It's that there's maintenance issues in the system.
Yeah. And how is riding it in the rain and bad weather? I know at some level you're not going to get electrocuted from it, but how does it really feel when it starts to rain and you're out on an electric bike?
It's no different than when it rains and you're outside doing anything, right?
Okay.
But when I used to commute on my regular bike, I was like, you can only get so wet, right?
Yeah.
I own rain gear. I have waterproof shoes. I have gloves. I have all the stuff for it. The hardest part for me is that I wear glasses, and there's never been a great solution for biking in the rain with glasses.
Yeah.
They get water on them. It's not great, but I have good rain gear. It's not a different thing. And if you don't mind getting a little bit wet and you have good gear, you'll be fine. I find the wind more irritating than the rain because when you're riding in the wind, it adds all this resistance, and it's just more work.
Yeah.
Right? And in the case of it being more work on an electric bike, it's more work for the bike too. And so climbing a lot of hills, riding and facing into the wind can reduce the range that you get out of your bike.
Yeah.
Right. So you may get like 6 miles instead of 7 if that's what you've got left on your charge and the weather is against you. But rain itself, weather as a default, cold, whatever, that's just about what you're wearing and it doesn't change based on what you're riding.
Nice. what's next for e-bikes and you? When you travel, do you rent one from a bike shop? Do you get one from a city share? What's your MO when you're on the road?
So I do City Bike, whatever the City Bike share is. Although I was in New York recently for the premiere of our film,
Yes.
and I took the subway. We don't have the subway here, and the New York subway is such a it's its own experience.
Mm-hmm.
And as much as I absolutely thought about riding a bike in New York and how fun that would have been, I was like, nah, I'm going to take the subway. But I pick up an e-bike. I had an extended stay over the winter, and I did not bring my bike with me. I went to Moab last winter, and I spent a big bicycle town. It's mostly mountain bike stuff. It's not really a road bike town. It's a mountain bike town. And I looked into renting a bicycle long term, and it was prohibitively expensive. And that town doesn't have bike share. You can rent a bike by the day, basically.
Yeah.
And I was like, yeah, you know what? I'm not doing this. I'm not doing this here. And I wished I had taken my bike with me. I was there long enough that it would have been worth it. So that kind of thing. And I had my car, right? Like I should have figured out how to get my bike in the car. I don't have a rack.
Yeah.
And that's the other thing, is that because e-bikes tend to be quite heavy, you need a different kind of configuration for a rack. Like I can't heft a 70-pound bicycle onto a trunk rack. I can't do it.
Right.
And there are racks that have little things that you roll the bike up onto and stuff. And so I'm looking into that for the next time I do any kind of extended travel, or I travel with my car, and that allows me to take it with me. But I love picking up a bike when I am in faraway places. It's fun. It's fun to travel with a bicycle. It gets you where you want to go faster than walking, but you still get that feeling of being outside and being on the ground and moving in a pace that you can observe what's happening. I had ice cream for dinner last night because I'm an adult who gets to make her own decisions.
Yeah.
But when I came home, I thought, you know what? I had ice cream for dinner. I think I should go for a bike ride. And I rode down to the beach near my house. I live in West Seattle, is kind of surrounded, is a little bit on a peninsula, and it's surrounded by water. There's a big strip of beach, Alki Beach. And Sunday was Mother's Day. And the weather was really good. It was beautiful, sunny thing. And so I got on my bike and I rode down to the waterfront, and it was packed. It was absolutely packed. And it seemed like there were several hundred Latino families having family picnics. And there's all this music and all this noise and all these people having parties. And going through that on a bicycle is thrilling. It's really fun. Going through it in a car is not the same experience.
Yeah.
And so when you do that in a foreign city, you're moving at this pace where you're able to observe, but you're also moving fast enough to get where you want to go.
Love it. I love it. So where do you recommend people start? So they've ridden an e-bike and city share. They're like, okay, I can imagine if I owned the bike, how much better this would be. Where do people start?
Yeah, so I did a ton of research online because I'm that kind of weirdo. But I will say that the single thing that I think is the most useful when you are thinking I'm going to buy an electric bike is to go to the bike shop nearest your house that you like, that sells e-bikes, and ride all of their bicycles.
Yeah.
There's a specific reason I mentioned going to the bike shop nearest your house, which is that they need maintenance sometimes, and they are heavy, and it's a drag to schlep them around. And if you have a good bike shop near your house, you're working with a bike shop that is in a place where you can get your bike there and back when it needs work done.
Yeah.
My current bike shop where I bought my last bike is a little far. It's 6 miles away. When I need it worked on, I ride it up there, and then I take an Uber home, or I wrangle a friend to come and get me and give me a ride back to my place. It's not ideal. I had a bike shop that was closer. They stopped carrying electric bikes. Another e-bike shop in my neighborhood that I didn't like. They just I'm a woman on a bicycle, and women in bike shops and women in music stores and women in various places sometimes get attitude from the dudes. And this particular neighborhood bike shop, I was like, you know what? I'm not doing business here. I'm not doing business here. Right. And so the other thing that I would say specifically to people who are listening to this, who are women and thinking about going to buy a bike, is don't go to a bike shop where they treat you like crap. So the shop that I use now, it's called Dandelion. It's here in Seattle. And I haven't seen women working there, but they are stand-up dudes. I really like the store. They're very nice. And when I went to, when I bought my bike from them, I was waiting for them to do something, and they let me ride every single thing. They were like, do you want that one out? What about this one? And I was like, I'm not really looking for that. And they were like, you should still take it for a ride because it's crazy. So ride all the bikes, ride all of them.
Yeah.
And I think of buying a bicycle as, you know, when you buy pants and you put them on and they fit.
Yeah.
Right? Like, and you're like, there's nothing else I need to know about these pants. I put them on and they fit.
Yeah.
And they feel good. That's how I think you should feel when you ride the bike. Right? And so it's not about the cost. It's not about the features. It's about, like, what does it feel like to ride this bicycle? And there's another bike that I rode. It's called the Gazelle. And it's a very well-known high-end Dutch bicycle. It's a beautiful, beautiful bicycle. But I really liked the way this other bike that I rode felt. And that's the one I bought.
Yeah.
So you can shop for bicycles by feature. You can shop for anything by feature, right?
Yeah.
But you want to ride it, and you want to feel good when you ride it, and you want to feel like it fits. And actually, since I said fit, the other thing is that work with a bike shop that will fit you, because there are all these adjustments that they can do. And when I went to pick up my bike, they probably spent 45 minutes making sure the handlebars were at the right height,
Nice.
and that the saddle was in the right position, and the seat was the right height. And they did all the stuff. If the bike shop's not going to fit you, go somewhere else, right? It is a tool for living, and it should be comfortable and useful. So work with a shop that's going to give you that kind of attention.
Outstanding. And people should know that on your FAQs on your website, nerdseiview.com, you do have an e-bike FAQ.
I do, because so many people have asked me about it.
Yeah.
So many people have asked me about it. It's happening less now in Seattle, but I've been riding an e-bike for maybe 7-8 years now. And
wow.
Yeah, I was very early. And I used to lock it up outside the grocery store, and random people would come up to me and ask me about it. And so and now they have much wider adoption. Lots of people are riding them. And so it doesn't happen so often, but it used to happen to me all the time, that random folks I'd be locking up my bike and somebody would come up and talk to me about it.
Outstanding. Pam, is there anything else about e-bikes that I haven't asked, and if you didn't get to share, you would be sad that it went unsaid?
I feel like I have gone on and on, just like I promised you I could.
That is the point of this podcast. That's what the whole premise is. I'm 170 odd episodes in, and that's the premise.
I will say that I still, every now and then, am out on my bike, and some random dude will tell me that I am cheating. And I used to be really I don't know what the word I'm thinking of is. I used to be really sort of, I don't know, I wanted to justify it, right?
Right.
And now my answer is, oh my God, you're right. Next time I'll drive.
Smart. That's a good response.
Yeah. You I'll take my car.
Yeah.
What do you want from me?
Oh boy. Well, Pam, it has been wonderful to get to know you. Where can people follow you on the internet?
I am Nerd's Eye View on all the things. My website and my blog is at nerdseiview.com, and there's stuff about my book there. And I am Nerd's Eye View on Threads, because I'm still Nerd's Eye View on Twitter, but I don't touch it.
Yep.
I am Nerd's Eye View on Instagram, everywhere. That's where to find me. And if anybody's looking for information about the film too, through any of those channels, that's a great way to contact me, and I can share information via that.
Great. And we will have a link to your newsletter in the show notes.
Yeah, I'll send that to you, Leah.
Outstanding. You can find Finding Favorites anywhere podcasts are given away freely, like Apple Podcasts and Spotify. Please rate and review and tell your friends to give us a listen. I think if it helps the big podcast, it's got to help the independent podcast as well. Finding Favorites is edited by Rob Abrazado, and I'm your host, Leah Jones. So wear your mask, wash your hands, and keep enjoying your favorite things.
Thank you for listening to Finding Favorites with Leah Jones. Please make sure to subscribe and drop us a 5-star review on iTunes. Now, go out and enjoy your favorite things.